what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
And welcome to another adventure here live on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, Annie, along with my co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing good. I'm just waiting for January the 20th, like everybody else. That'll be my present.
Yeah, we've got, 24 more days. Listen, we got ourselves a great show. Got a friend of ours coming on the show, Trevor Loudon. People know him. He has a blog called The New Zeal. He's got several books out. He's also got a movie that he's collaborated with. We're going to talk about that, dealing with the issue of communism and how much it has become infested here within the United States. But along that reign, we also have a special guest, and I know I'm going to mispronounce her name, Alyona Kojevniko. I know I just butchered that one. But she also goes by the name of Helena, and she'll be joining us live from London. We had a little bit of a screw up. We had a little bit of a time difference debate. So she was here 8 o'clock this morning.
Where is she at?
She's in London. She's in London. So she's 5 hours, behind us. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the book, which Vladimir Bukovsky wrote, and she interpreted from Russian into English, called Communism from Utopia to Disaster. And if we look at a lot of things about going on today with wokeism, climate change, eminent domain, political wokeness, all these things tie into a communist theme. And each one is determined to separate us from our religion, our love of country, our property, and our freedoms, all under the guise of equity. Just when you hear the word equity, run for the hills, folks, because we know what's coming up next. So we got a lot to talk about and a lot to do. And she may join us a little bit early also. So
that'd be nice.
With that said, I want to really, truly do wish everyone here that are listening and will catch us in the archives the very, very blessed Christmas and Hanukkah. We're looking forward to a very, very prosperous New Year come 2025 and the inauguration of Donald Trump. So sit back, folks, because it may be a little bit of a bumpy ride ahead, but we're going to come sailing through on the other side with clean colors. I'm going to predict that. With that said, Curtis, those that listen to the show know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to Agent Davis Geovanni Martinez of the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, the Division of Parole and Probation. His end of watch was Friday, May 31st of this year. And so the dedication I have doesn't describe what happened, and let me do that. Take a moment. Agent Davis Martinez was stabbed while conducting a home visit on a convicted sex offender in the 2800 block of Terrace Drive in Chevy Chase, Maryland. Officers from the Montgomery Police Department went to check on Agent Martinez after he failed to return to his office. The officers discovered his body at the offender's apartment, suffering from multiple stab wounds. The subject had fled the scene, but was arrested in Hurricane, West Virginia the following day by members of the United States Marshal Service Task Force. He has been charged with second-degree murder. Agent Martinez had served with the Maryland Division of Parole and Probation for 6 years and was assigned to the Silver Spring Field Office. So today's dedication is to Agent Martinez.
Martinez family, we are here today in numbers because we too have lost a member of our family. As you, just like us, we struggle to make sense of Davis's short time here on earth. But know that God knew this plan. He knows the plan for each of us and brings no more to us than we can bear. Mom, we're here with you to the end. We've been with you from the beginning. We're here with you today, and we will not leave you tomorrow. This is your new extended family. Family and friends, we have received numerous citations, cards, words of comfort from all over the country. Many are here today. I want to thank you on behalf of the family for being here, that today the top 3 leaders of the state of Maryland are here with you. We have with us the Secretary of State, Ms. Susan Lee, the Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller, and our Governor, Wes Moore.
In times of pain and struggle and sorrow, and in moments like this, when we can look at people who've come from all over the country to be with you, to stand with you, to remember Davis about who he was in life, that he was proud, he was raised right, he loved his family and he loved his community, and he sacrificed for us all. And I want to say that we stand with you always, and we lift you up, and we know that God stands with you. At a time when we receive unneeded reminders of the fact that so much of our society still seems ruptured, we hold on to Davis because Davis gives us hope. We hold on to Davis because he reminds us of our humanity. We hold on to Davis because he reminds us of our obligation. We hold on to him because in his life, he reminded us of what's worth fighting for. To our fellow parole and probation officers, to everybody at DPSCS, to you, Madam Secretary. I say we stand with you and all of you, now and always. That you deserve our commitment and our support. That you deserve more than just our words. You deserve everything that we offer and can offer, because that's exactly what you give to us every single day. And the same way that every single day you stand for us, I want to let you know that today and tomorrow and forevermore, this administration stands with you. It is unbearably unfair, because he still should be with us today. And we have to commit in everything that we do to continue to work together to ensure that something like this should never and will never happen again. But I stand before you humbly, not just as your governor, but as a fellow Marylander, to say that we are committed to turning this pain into purpose. We are committed to making this better and making it right. And we will continue to honor Davis's memory, and we will make it right in his honor.
it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager to listen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us make room. Let us reimagine, welcoming voices with true compassion. Let's craft a world with hopes and dreams, challenges known, and those still unseen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be sure, when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let it be said, oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation.
All right, and we're back, and that was Tiffany with the dedication song to Agent Davis Martinez. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, Annie, along with my co-host, author C.S. Bennett. Curtis, we got ourselves a great guest. She's waiting in the green room patiently. And I messed her up this morning. And, you know, of all things, I used to own a travel agency. I should know the difference in time zones. So I messed her up. So I'm going to let her beat me with a wet noodle. And I know she's going to do it because I'm going to mispronounce her name. So I'll allow her to introduce herself. Let me just make sure your mic is turned on and it's muted on your end. It's muted on your end. You guys click on the screen. No, we can't hear you because you got to unmute yourself. It's on. There we go. There we got you now.
Okay, my name is Alyona Kojevniko.
All right.
Easy, Kojevniko.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, people can't get my last name correctly either, so don't worry.
It happens.
I mean, it used to be easy because my maiden name was King, which would have been von Koenig, but my grandfather changed it World War I, and I ended up marrying a Latvian, so it's supposed to be Ubelis, but I say, just say it the way it's spelled.
I think your husband and I had a common childhood in that we were both children from DP camps.
Correct.
Displaced persons camps, sort of after war-torn Europe.
Yes. Yeah, my late husband, he passed away a couple of years back, but he was born in Augsburg in the displaced persons camp there. His mother, the two oldest girls she had over in Latvia, and they were hiding in the forest when the bombs were coming down on the farms, and her brothers were conscripted for, slave labor, and her his father was working in he was a major in the Latvian army in charge of the artillery, so he was there fighting, but ended up in a prisoner of war camp, first under the Nazis, then under the Soviets. So yeah, it's a very familiar, similar background.
Yes, it's sort of the great trek of all of us who are, victims of communism, I suppose, in a way. I must say, I must ask you to excuse me. We've all got coughs and colds at the moment. That's why I sound so terrible. I have a particularly soft spot for America, because if it were not for America, I would not be here today. In 1920, when the remains of the White Russian army were evacuating, and my grandmother and three children, my mother was the smallest, aged 4, they had the Bolsheviks coming after them, and they were stranded on the beaches in Novorossiysk, and there was an American minesweeper standing out to sea, and the captain of that minesweeper took all the white officers and their families on board and transported them to Yugoslavia. So if it were not for that captain and that American minesweeper, I would not be here today.
Yeah, God bless. God bless. Yes. Now, you yourself are a talented poet and author, media personality. You've been on various different media outlets for decades. You also had the pleasure of being friends with Vladimir Bukovsky. And I know in the emails I sent you, I was supposed to interview him, but he passed away just before. Matter of fact, the day that I was originally scheduled, he forgot all about it, and he was having a massive vodka party. So we rescheduled, and unfortunately, I never got to interview him. But I did talk to the editor of the book that he had written at that time, which was, again, about communism. But you have this other book that you interpreted, Communism from Utopia to Disaster by Vladimir Bukovsky, which is up on Amazon right now, that people can get there. It's a very, very interesting book. And we as Americans, we get accustomed to going through our day-to-day lives. We don't really pay a lot of attention to things going around us and how it creeps insistently into our society and to what we think is normal everyday stuff. And it's something that maybe I, as a child, was a little bit more sensitive to, growing up in the 60s and 70s. My father having been a World War II veteran also. My mother's family fled Italy under the fascism of Mussolini. So like I said, I'm only like a generation away.
Yeah.
But there's so many Americans that are not that close, and they don't understand what they're seeing around them.
I think it's a geographical difference. America was sort of cut off from Europe for so long, the Monroe Doctrine and so on. I think with World War II, that sort of alienation disappeared because you had the American soldiers in Europe. I remember in the DP camp when I was about 4 years old, this was in the American zone of occupied Germany, and the GIs used to take us kids in Willis Jeeps and drive us all around the camp.
Oh, the Willies, yes.
It was great fun. But I think, the world is getting smaller. I hate the expression global village, but it is a global village in many ways. Before it'd take months for a ship to, bring information from Europe to America or to Australia. Now it's a second, and it's all over the world. So in that respect, we all have to be more careful, I think, of ideas. Everything is moving. This is something that Vladimir Bukovsky and I talked about a lot, because he gave his life to fighting communism. And it was interesting, I knew, we were friends for 40 years. I never once heard him complain about his torturers, the prison camps, because I think after a while, when you have so much negative stuff dumped on you, you begin to see your tormentors as the pathetic ones, not you. They are the pathetic ones. And his thing was this fear. Well, we used to laugh about it, that Satan's best trick was to convince us all that he doesn't exist. Well, Loda says that the communists' best trick is to try to seize our souls and try to convince us that we're free when we're not. And that was something. He was an amazing person, really. As I said, there was no anger in him because he chose his path consciously. And, I'm an old lady. I've met a lot of people in my life. And my eulogy at his funeral, I said something that I can say only I think about. He was the only person I met who fits the beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
He never lost sight of God. That's the whole thing. He never did. Throughout everything he went through, the psychiatric hospitals, the forced treatments and medications, the tortures and everything, he held on to his faith. And that's the one thing that communism can't stand.
Yeah, the harder, it's like a nail. The harder you hit it, the deeper it goes.
I don't know if you know Trevor Loudon. He's a friend of mine also. He's coming on right after you, and he's got a new movie out. Yes, Trevor's a sweetheart. But reading this book and reading his previous works and your works, it just comes back to the same thing, that we as Americans don't understand true Marxism. We don't understand how it's seeping in through the education system, through the DEI and corporations. Right now, Utah is fighting the government because right now, the federal government owns 70% of the land in the state of Utah. I'm sorry, if that is not a symbol of communism, because one thing they want to take is not just our freedom, but the ability to own property.
Yeah.
And so as I'm looking through all this, it's a multi-front attack against us, and we have to understand it. It's not just one thing. It's multi-pronged.
Well, I dare say one shouldn't really comment on the governments of other countries. So with the Labour government, we're settled Southern was at the moment. Oh my God, God help us all. But
You might get arrested. Watch out.
absolutely. I was in the States last, about 5 years ago now. I was visiting scholar at Baylor University in Texas. And I was amazed. Young Americans who would come up and talk, much more friendly than Europeans, they'd say, oh, you haven't seen you before, where did you come from? They were more open, I would say, to ideas than your standard European young person. At the moment, sort of the wokeness that is everywhere.
Yes.
One hopes that this will pass with time because it's, verging on the absurd at the moment. I think there is more readiness among young people in America, certainly the ones I encountered, to listen to new ideas. They may not agree with you, but they will listen. They don't have a sort of a brick wall mentality where they already know that they are right and they don't want to hear what you've got to say. So I think, yes, I think America at the moment has made a good recovery. I suppose that points out what I think of the American elections. But I think America is such a great country with such enormous potential. The spirit of man cannot be crushed. And I don't think the Americans can be crushed. If it comes to the push, they will, band together and stand, back to back in front of the mast to repel all comers.
Well,
I'm very optimistic about America's future.
Well, I always have hope and joy in a lot of what we have, but I also have fear because Ronald Reagan said we're only one generation away from losing these liberties.
Yes.
And when we see the wokeness, and matter of fact, a friend of mine, my state attorney general, Alan Wilson, is fighting because they're saying that the schools insist that you use a certain pronoun for these children. And what happened to the First Amendment freedom of speech? So there is that spirit of fight. And when you turn around and tell me I can't say something, I'm sorry, the American spine is going to stiffen and the back is going to go up and the hackles on the hair is going to go on the neck and you're going to have a fight. How dare you tell me what I can or cannot say?
Yeah.
Yet that's what communism wants. They want to control your speech, control your speech, control your thought, control your movement, and then they control you.
Yeah. Yes, it's a pity, at the moment, literature syllabuses in schools are so limited. For example, 1984. Who reads that these days? And it's all pat, Some people are more equal than others.
Yeah.
So,
Alyona,
yeah.
do the Europeans on hold, I mean, I know the United States has had its problems, thanks largely to certain leaderships that we have, but do they still look towards America as the leader of the free world?
I think there has been, for let's say the past 10 years, there has been a certain degree of disappointment that America was not living up to that role. It was, we did have a bipolar world, of course. In a way, it was easier. You had America and you had the Soviet Union, roughly, right? Sort of a bipolar world. That is gone now with the rise of China and so on. But I think, subconsciously, people do think of America as being sort of like a bastion of positivity. No matter,
the big brother.
Yeah,
like a big brother.
In a way, why not? Why not?
Well,
Big brother or twins, maybe. No, not twins. England can't be a twin of America. However, no, you're quite right. I think it's a hangover, I think, from the past that sort of America, in a way, I think the perception is that America sort of lost its way for a while, and now it's regaining that. Because I know a lot of books, for example, I'm sure you know Diana West, friend of mine, the journalist. She found her books were simply not being published. She lost the columns. I hope everything is going back now. Of course, now that will be resumed, but it was a suppression of freedom of speech by the academic left elite, which is always a damn nuisance, whichever country it's in and whichever epoch it's in. But it has to, you have to get up on your hind legs and fight.
Well, when we think about communism, we think militarily. We don't think socioeconomic. And that's where our problem is. And it's communism is just not Marx, Lenin, and so forth. Communism is now the intellectuals, the social elite. And they're just taking those thoughts and words that were written, twisting them to however it will fit their purpose. So where you were telling about your friend Diane West being censored. I can't tell you how many times this show has been taken down over the last going on 15 years.
Well, that's very flattering in a way.
It is. It's a badge of honor.
It means they've been hit.
But, we don't think about here in the United States as being censored. But now we've been finding the last decade that, yes, it has been happening. When we try to speak out about something, heaven forbid we object to the COVID jab. I'm sorry, I get yanked left and right everywhere. How dare you speak ill of whatever the favorite liberal is in power? You're a white wing nut, if I can say that 3 times fast. But they have slipped into our society in so many different ways. And we're seeing a lack of morals. And I think the America that truly the heart of it is seeing that. And I think maybe that's why this Christmas season was different and special this year. I think with the churn of the election, people are not afraid to go back to faith. However, we've got the problem where the communists have infiltrated our faith, our churches. So our church had to split away from the Episcopal because they went so liberal to the left. And we said, no, that's not what Christianity is truly about. So we're battling in so many different arenas. And I don't think Americans truly understand that.
No, you just have to. I find that when you hit back, usually, if you don't allow yourself to be intimidated, quite a few years ago now, I was waiting to be interviewed about the situation of the church in the then Soviet Union. And another person who was being interviewed, there were 4 of us supposed to be in the studio, who was a sort of a Church of England peacenik, George always better than war. And we're sort of waiting to go into the studio. And he said, I read that you're right in the Essen News Service, you're a right-wing fascist pig. And I said, well, I'd rather be a right-wing fascist pig than a communist fellow traveller like you. Having exchanged compliments, we then went into the studio and proceeded to argue in a more sort of restrained manner than that door. You have to hit back. You can't just sit back and let them do it to you.
No. I guess we lost my co-host for a second. Okay, he'll come back. As I was reading this, and I'm thinking through all the things, at one point when I went to college, you were able to debate. These students today, there is no debate. So someone like me, if I were to go to speak at a college, I would be shouted down. Matter of fact, I have been shouted down. I went to do they got a bunch of us together to help people register to vote. And they had someone from the left, and then I was there. And next thing I know, I'm being shouted down. And I just stopped and I said, I was not rude to your speaker, and I'm asking you not to be rude to me. And calmed the room down and said my say. And afterwards, I had many people saying, thank you. But that's the problem. If we bow, and that's the whole thing, if they can find that they can get the edge and turn around to the people on the edge and silence them, then those of us that may be a little bit more, not as extreme, but a little bit more, they know that they're going to cow us. And that's how communism works. They work from the outside, dig in until they get to the heart, and now everyone is just one voice.
Well, the art of debate seems to have been lost. Well, I know in the UK universities, for example, really pernicious habit has appeared of deplatforming people. If someone is speaking on maybe not even a particularly contentious issue, but goes against the wokery, for example, they will be refused a platform. The art of debate is no longer accepted. You either have to agree with whoever the majority in the audience are thinking, or you're not. Your point of view is not acceptable. No one wants to hear it. So
no, that's the shame. That is an absolute shame. And it actually should be unacceptable to those of us in the United States, because freedom of speech is the most important. And what gets me is in that First Amendment, we also have the freedom of a religion, for the free expression thereof that shall not be impeded. And that's the one thing they want to do. So now you can't pray in public. We used to have sidewalk preachers. Now you're disturbing the peace, so they use that to take the sidewalk preachers off. If you turn around and you're in the pulpit and you preach against something that the government doesn't agree, say, for example, the COVID jab, or being able to congregate together during the pandemic, you are now going to be arrested because you violated whatever regulation some bureaucrat put together. And that is how communism comes into our political platform. We allow it, and that's why we've got to.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people like to be told what they can do and what they can't do. It's a sad fact of life. It's much easier if you're told you have to go out with a mask on your face. It's easier to go out with a mask on your face than be hassled by people. Oh, sorry, that's a
Tell your boyfriend you call back later.
A friend from San Francisco, actually. I'll get back.
Now, wasn't it Nancy Pelosi who was caught going to a hair salon during COVID when she was telling people not to do that, and she wasn't wearing a mask or anything? It's one of those do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. No, it happens all the time, Absolute power tends to corrupt, absolutely. So you can tread on anything, any shibboleth at all.
Well, prior to the show, Curtis and I were talking, and I was saying that, here under the idea of communism, they turn around and you're a victim class. So in order to raise you up and make everyone equal, we have to use equity. But as God's created creatures, we are not equal. Each one has a different talent, a different skill, a different choice in life. We can hope that we can all strive. We give you the ability to strive for your goal. We don't guarantee you that you're going to make it, but if we can, we'll help you. But equity turns around and levels the whole entire playing field, assuming that every single baby born is identical, and they're going to think identical, they will behave identical, and they will depend upon the government in the same identical manner.
Yeah. Can you imagine what a boring world it would be if we were all equal? Terrible.
Yeah. And they use class warfare. And Curtis has heard me say this before, and I said, does God make mistakes? God chose me to be in this form at this point in time. For whatever that purpose is for me to determine. And what I do with that expresses who I am as an individual. But the
Yeah.
individual under communism cannot exist.
Yeah, I don't know. My own cosmology is maybe a rather weird one, is to see the entire universe. It's like, I don't know, not even a patchwork quilt, but everything made up of threads. And each one of us is a thread. If you remove that thread, it may not be immediately visible, but it will change the nature of that blanket just when that one thread is missing. So really, and you need an awful lot of different threads to make a blanket, not just one that's the same color and the same length and the same shape.
Yeah, well, the book Communism from Utopia, if I can ever get this in front of the I have 15 years, I still can't do this. Communism from Utopia to Disaster. And that's the whole thing. They will promise you, we're going to promise you equity. We're going to promise that everything's going to be equal and you're going to get whatever you need. We're going to provide for you. But they actually deliver the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's enslavement. It's digging into the eternal, not the material, but the eternal, which is the soul. And that is what they're after. That is what they want to capture, the soul.
There's a little clip in Trevor's film that struck me, that they, again, removing God from the platform, where the teacher would turn around and tell the kids, if you really believe in God, close your eyes and pray that he gives you a piece of candy. And when they open their eyes, there's no candy there. So they said, okay, now close your eyes and pray to Uncle Stalin or Uncle Lenin, whatever. Pray to the Uncle Lenin. And the teacher would then put the candy in front of them with their eyes closed. Now open your eyes. See, Uncle Lenin will provide. But it's a lie. It is a complete lie. And that struck me. And here you got a little kid that they are being molded at that young age.
Yeah.
You are molding them into whatever model you want. So as they grow older, there is no resistance. And they're just going to follow lockstep.
I think a lot of the problem is, and I mean, without going into theological dimensions, a lot of people move away from religion as they get older because we no longer address God as adults, as one adult talking to another. We think of him we treat him as if we're still children. And we are children of God, but not in the sense of, a toddler. And that, I think, frightens a lot of people away, or it turns them against completely. One thing I noticed when I was working in Moscow, in Russia, for almost 20 years, at one stage on TV, they had like debates, atheists versus believers, debating various points of dogma. And one thing that struck me was that the atheists, when they ranted against God, their eyes were full of fear. Not even hatred, but fear. They fear the entire concept. And if God doesn't exist, what are you worried about? What are you so upset about? What are you frightened of? You're frightened of someone who doesn't exist, or who you maintain doesn't exist?
Well, what I think it is that those of us that have faith, we know we're striving for something. We're not perfect, but we are striving for something, that we know that when we close our eyes on this earth for the final time, there is a place for us somewhere else. And we're working to earn that place. So there's a goal for us here on earth with faith. But those without faith have no true goal in their life. They go through their day to day. They look for their fame. They look for their money. But does it truly satisfy them? And I think, again, the answer is no.
I think that COVID was a good example where faith and individuality were tested. And that's because of collectivism. If you weren't with that crowd that went along with COVID and the shots and all that, you were attacked as an individual and for your faith. Because I mean, when they put out something scary like COVID, if a lot of people were afraid of that, but those of faith weren't that afraid, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it was a point in my life where I saw where people crumbled under fear because the government manufactured that fear, and those who say they were of faith and talk the talk, they didn't walk the walk when it counted.
Yeah, also you'd be
Socialism
accused-
can't tolerate, socialism and communism cannot tolerate individualism nor faith, people of faith.
No. That is the biggest, I think, problem they encounter, like with Bukovsky, for example. They put him in lunatic asylums, they put him in isolation cells, they sort of shifted him from prisons and camps. And the worst thing for them was that they were unable to break this man. You know, they sort of threw everything. Yeah, they threw the kitchen sink at him, you might say, right?
Trying to break him.
And he was the one who remained unbroken. They had to retreat. They had to give up.
You translated his book, To Build a Castle, correctly?
No, I didn't do that. That was when he first came out, and it was the Alexandra.
It's live.
What is that?
No, that was managed by the Hoover Institution. I translated part of that book you're holding in your hands some time ago because it was published in a lot of languages apart from English. This is its first English publication, so it goes back a bit. I translated that, and also his sort of doorstopper book that's about that thick, Judgment in Moscow. That was just before he died. And he really wanted that to come out, very much so. And it came out before he died. So he was actually able to hold this book in his hands a couple of months before he died.
That was the book I was supposed to interview him on, having read it, and I was looking forward to it. But what he does in that book is he actually puts communism on trial, doesn't he?
Oh, yes. And it's interesting, you know, a lot of people, I read a lot of, heavens, we talked about everything under the sun. He did not like people to ask him questions about, do you believe in God, about his religion. He said, I don't want people, strangers, walking around inside my head. This is something that's too personal. So he used to say something like, I'm an agnostic. But just before he died, I was in the hospital during the day and I had to come back to London. And I said my goodbyes to him. And just when I came home, Pavel Stroila phoned me and he said, he's just died. But he asked for a priest. He did confession. He was given the last rites. And we had agreed that with him ages before that he was buried with my cross.
Wow.
Because he was, and in his book, actually, the big one, there's a piece that I think was not edited out, where he said that finally, when I stand before the judge, I will be able to say to him, I did my best.
Yes.
So, and I think that is something that carried him through. And he said to me once, we were talking about prayer, and he said, yes, he said, of course we should all say, please help me, God, help me to conquer my unbelief.
Wow. He was a very powerful man, and I'm sorry I didn't get to interview him live. Like I said, I got the book just a couple of months before he passed. And it would have been a pleasure. It would have been a pleasure. I mean, you have done a fantastic job on doing the interpretation on another book, Communism from Utopia to Disaster. And you can see my little markings from reading.
Yes, so I see.
Well, normally sometimes they send me the Kindle or the PDF, and it's easier to do that. But then I have to sit there. But when I go to physical therapy, I take the book with me with little tabs. People looking at me like I'm strange. No, I'm doing my homework. But there's a lot of interesting things, because he also, in this book, had the character of Faust, Dr. Faust, who tried to create his world in his own image. And that's what communism wants to do also, create the world in what it feels its image is.
Yes.
But it's antithetical to human nature.
Yeah, it goes against we're all unique in the face of God, every single one of us. And communism, social, it hates uniqueness. If you're unique, you're out of step.
True.
And you have to be sort of forced back into line to be in step with everyone else, walking the prescribed walk.
And you know, the closest I've gotten to experience socialism is in the military. Because the first thing they do when you go to boot camp, they shave your head. They want everyone to be the same. There's no uniqueness, no spikes in your hair, no afros, no whatever, perms. You're all the same.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, it's like you told when to get up, when to go to bed.
Yeah, but that's part of the military. I have military roots going back for generations and generations. So I'm sort of... I'm
saying, but that's the closest that I ever got to knowing what it's like to really have somebody control you, your life and stuff. That's all.
No,
It doesn't compare to real socialism.
No, the real is, because reading all my homework, there's somewhere around, oh geez, these numbers are absolutely outstanding. During the 1930s, 6 to 9 million Russians starved under the Soviets, most of them in Ukraine. Stalin had over 1 million executed. Total Soviet deaths, more than 62 million that are known of. 12 to 20 million Christians have been persecuted. And what they did was, in order to allow people to feel like they had a religion, the state took over the religion. They appointed the Orthodox priests. So it was completely state-run. But you also had the underground Christians.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that were persecuted. And even till today, I get this magazine in called The Voice of Martyrs, under different circumstances, whether it's underneath communist guerrillas in South America or in the Middle East or Russia or whatever. Christianity, true Christianity, is still very much under attack.
Well, more so than anything, I think I read a piece not long ago that globally, Christianity is the most persecuted faith in the world.
Man.
Christianity as such, as Christianity, that it is in various parts of the world, it's coming under persecution. And I thought, heavens, if it goes on like this, we'll soon be back in the catacombs.
Yeah. Like I said, they've got a lot of underground. And Franklin Graham, who took over the ministry from his father, has been sending out these shoebox packages for Christmas gifts. And he said for the last 10 years, he has not been allowed to travel into Russia. Wait a minute. I thought Russia was no longer Soviet. Oh, wait a minute. Who do we have in charge? Putin? Former KGB or GRU, whatever you want to call him now. And he is bringing back the Soviet Union, isn't he?
It's worse, and it's worse, because I know what the Soviet Union was like in sort of like pre-perestroika times. And at the moment, it's just little loose leaf legislation. You had the authorities would violate the law, certainly before, but the law was there. Now they're just inventing new laws and promulgating them the next day, or resurrecting, making laws post-dated. So in a way, what there is today is worse. I mean, it's all a matter, of course, of comparison, but it's worse now than it even was before.
You know,
Before, you knew if you were breaking the law, you did it consciously. Now you don't know that you've broken the law because the law was only enacted yesterday.
but we're seeing this not just in the former Soviet Union, if you want to call it that, but even where you are now in the United Kingdom. If you say the wrong thing, it's determined hate speech and you can be arrested. And here you have the United Kingdom that gave us the Magna Carta, that gave us English common law, that gave us the basis that now built our Declaration of Independence and Constitution. And that very nation now says, if we feel like you said something to that person because maybe they're transgender or maybe they think are a puppy dog, and you say something and they get insulted, you can be arrested. I find that absolutely outrageous, and that the British would stand for that.
If they try to arrest me, they'll be sorry. Very sorry.
You need a Second Amendment over there. But this is what we have to be on the alert for. So if we don't protect ourselves here in the United States, how can then we promote our beliefs, our republic? I'm not going to say democracy, because we are a democratically elected republic based upon a rule of law, not on majority. 50 plus 1 decides what happens. The rule of law decides. And this is what we need to get back to. And I'm hoping this administration coming in will give us that. We've seen the lawfare going after your opponents. That's communism. That in the face is communism.
You know, a rose by any other name is still a rose, Communism by any other name is still communism. So, and you're right. You just have to be aware of this sort of creeping, invidious influencing at all levels, I think, of society at the moment, at all levels of society.
Well, the book is fascinating, and you also have other works out. Where can people find you if they want to know more about your works and stuff? Do you have a website or anything?
I'm a retired little old lady now.
So am I.
One has to go on. No, actually, I've got some. I was interviewed quite I've been very lucky. You know, I think it's a Spanish saying that be careful what you ask God for. Well, I asked for an eventful, interesting life. So I've been interviewed quite a lot, and my friends and family have been pressuring me for ages to sit down and write my autobiography. But I have mainly not so much. As a journalist myself, of course, I wrote, pieces and I was interviewed on Newsnight and so on as a specialist on the Soviet Union, and particularly the churches in the Soviet Union. But my main forte was translating from Russian into English. And I've translated more than a dozen books, including those two of Vladimir's. And I think the one I am most happy with, let's put it that way, was the description of her time in the camps by she died 5 years ago of cancer, the poet Irina Ratushinskaya. She was imprisoned for 12 years altogether, sort of 7 years of strict regime camps and 5 years of internal exile. She was an excellent poet, and she wrote about her time in this so-called small zone where particularly dangerous political prisoners were kept. And she was arrested in Kiev for her poetry. She was a Christian believer, very deep Christian believer. Her book is, I think it's the best translation I've ever done. Her book is called Grey is the Color of Hope, and it's
Right.
available on Amazon still. And this, I think, if I were asked what I would recommend for people to read about how communism treated its prisoners, and this was women, these were all women who were in a prison within a prison sort of thing, prison inside the labor camp. I would urge everyone to read that.
Yeah, it is. I downloaded the summary, and I was going through it because it's talking about the acts of defiance and resistance, using wit and humor to engage your enemy, basically, because that's what the guards were, finding, bonding with other women in adversity, just trying to find, comfort. So you had things to do, and different coping mechanisms and psychological strategies for survival, and then the most difficult part is once you're released, coming back into society. I've got to get the whole book because I was reading through the summary that you sent me, and it looks absolutely fascinating.
I really, really recommend, drop everything, go on Amazon or whatever, or in other words, or force your local library to get it on interlibrary loan. Praise the Color of Hope, it's called.
Hey, I got one last question.
Yeah.
If I can, real quick. You're in London, right?
Yeah.
What do they think about Canada becoming another state, part of the United States? I mean, most Canadians are loyal to the Crown.
I must confess that as far as I know, the Brits don't think a great deal about Canada. It's a far country of which we don't know much, Well, it doesn't play much of a role on the international stage, does it? Beautiful country.
It helps out in a couple of wars.
Yes.
It sends a few ships into conflicts.
First World War, certainly, the Canadian losses were very heavy there. But today, I don't know, when you ask people if you ask people what do they think of Canada, they'd say, oh yes, it's big, it's near Alaska, isn't it, sort of thing, But no, so it's not, I hate to say this, but I would say that it's not a big concern.
Oh, okay.
The Brits are more interested in America than they are in Canada. Canada, all sort of dog sleds and, forests, and that sort of thing.
Well, with us, we now have an open border with Canada, so we have the illegals coming over the northern border as well as the southern border. But there's the saying that if it happens here in America, it definitely is going to happen in Canada, meaning if we lose our liberties and freedoms. But Canada's already seeing that, free speech is being inhibited. There's now, as you call the censorship, the deplatforming. So we've got to watch Canada because that can seep, and it is seeping over the border. That's why we're more interested in it than before. But
don't talk to me about borders. I live 1.5 miles away from the English Channel. We've got them coming over in hundreds and thousands from France every day.
Yeah, and you're having it where you're finding young girls and others being attacked. Increase in murders. It is pretty bad. And if we don't close our borders, we've got somewhere around 350,000 children unaccounted for that came over the border. They've got now an app that you sign on to the app and you can come in and go anywhere. Over 1 million have already used that app to come in. But I think they said about 64.5 million illegals have been trying to access that app to join here. Let's hope that within the next 20 some odd days, nothing happens to dear Donald Trump and he gets sworn in.
Well,
so that's my prayer to God today.
Yeah, well, that's a horrible problem, to solve because that border has been leaking like a sieve, one between Mexico and America. So, I mean, we get that too. Luckily, I live in a 1,000-year-old little town on the seacoast. There's nothing for the illegal migrants to be interested in here. They're all heading for London, and sort of the more interesting places. But it is a terrible problem, because you do get, they don't check them very much. And you get people allegedly coming from war-torn countries, which they're nothing of the kind. And they don't stop at the first country, France. The French want to see the back of them as quickly as possible. So they don't do an awful lot to stop these little boats coming over, these little rubber dinghies. They're deliberately sunk in the middle of the channel so that the English Coast Guard will come and pick them up. It's a huge business. It's sort of someone's making megabucks on it. A whole lot of people are making megabucks on it.
Well, it has been a pleasure having you on. We welcome you back anytime. And I'm sorry about the time zone thing. And like I said, I should know better. I used to bounce all over the world, and how can I just get it past backwards, as a friend of mine said.
Well, so thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your patience.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And again, if I can get this in front of the camera the correct way, Communism from Utopia to Disaster by Vladimir Bukovsky, and translated by our guest, the lovely, lovely lady.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Merry Christmas and God bless.
Yep, God bless.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, check out. You can get that book up on Amazon. There's links on the show description. You can click on there, and you can download it off of Amazon as on your Kindle, or just get the book sent to you. And it is really fascinating. I mean, the stuff that I was pulling up, the information, and what she has written, and her speeches she has given. Man, what a fantastic lady, and what a fantastic. I want her to write her biography. I mean, this is going to be absolutely phenomenal.
I have to get that book. It's on Amazon, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So if you're listening, because you'll see us up on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, up on X, also on our homepage, which is southernsense.net. Click on the link there. And people are posting all over X right now. So I'm glad. And I like to see everyone that's up there now, and people that have been in our chat rooms also. We're just going to take a little break. And I'm hoping that our friend Trevor will call in. But in the interim, what I'm going to do is play the preview to the film that is coming out, Beneath Sheep's Clothing, it's called. And let's hope that he'll call in very shortly as I play the preview. Here we go.
You are suggesting that the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources or FBI agents. The answer is no, it was not.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
It's not protest, it's insurrection.
When I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol, and how many went into the Capitol, can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
You don't know how many there were, or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any.
Smoke pops, and when Pep starts to leave, he's got 4 people in front of him and 4 people behind him, and they literally get him the hell out of there.
Based on your investigation so far, do you have any evidence that the Capitol attack was organized by, quote, fake Trump protesters?
We have not seen evidence of that.
We need to go into the Capitol!
I was in the front. I also orchestrated it.
Antifa! Antifa!
Let me through, I got a knife.
We have not to date seen any evidence of anarchist violent extremists or people subscribing to Antifa in connection with the 6th.
It's not protest, it's insurrection.
Insurrection.
Oh, I actually hit the wrong one. That was Nick Searcy's movie. And he was supposed to come on and talk about that, the January 6th. Well, it's we've got the inauguration coming up, so it's my bad, my goof. Hey, I can't be perfect 100% of the time, just most of it, 99. How's that sound?
Yeah. But you notice how they're pushing that term, insurrection. And that became the talking point from that point on for the left, And you got people sitting in jail for what? Just for being in the building at the time?
And some of them never even entered the building, and they have been arrested. So I'm looking through stuff here, see what else I have here, because it looks like, I don't know what's going on with Trevor. He hasn't called back in yet.
And then when you listen to the mainstream media, they will say things like, well, Trump is going to pardon the insurrectionists. And the thing is, they don't say that he's going to go case by case. They just make it sound like he's going to a blanket, pardon. And it's just they haven't learned anything from the elections. What I'm trying to say, I guess, they're still up to their old antics. And I just, I think it's going to continue to do them in as a party and as a power. And I'm not sorry to see that, tell you the truth.
Well, I've sent a message to Trevor's agent and to Trevor, so hopefully he'll see it and sign in a few moments. But I'm always reading and finding articles all over the place. There was one in, what am I reading here? It's Newsmax? Yeah, it's Newsmax magazine. I was talking about Utah and how 70% of their land is government owned. Well, I don't know if you remember back in 2005, this case went up to the Supreme Court, and there was an area in Connecticut off of the Thames River in Connecticut, and a developer wanted to build a shopping mall. That would mean all these houses would have to get knocked down. These people would lose their homes. Well, there was one woman, a school teacher, that stood up and fought them all the way to the Supreme Court. I believe her name was Susan Kello. In 2005, Kello versus the City of New London. It was a total of 15 properties overlooking Connecticut's Thames River. So this wasn't for a public project like a road or something like that, or something the public actually needed. This is to give a developer the land so he can make money off of it.
Yeah, I remember that case.
Supreme Court allowed it to happen.
I remember that too, sadly.
So now in North Carolina, the Department of Transportation used eminent domain to bulldoze 1,765 acres of a working class neighborhood containing 12 homes, 4 businesses, and a church to make way for a Vietnamese-run electric vehicle plant for economic prosperity.
For who?
For the
Vietnam or what?
Communist Vietnamese. And in Long Island, there's a guy who's going to lose his hardware store because they want to put a passive park. I mean, here's a guy who's got a business, a successful business that's benefiting the community, and they want to knock it down with eminent domain to build a park. Folks, this is the communism we're talking about that we see seeping into our society. They've taken what we've had, our laws, and have been twisting them to serve their purposes. Now, who does this passive park benefit? A couple of people that walk the dogs? A couple of parents that take the kids out in the stroller? Whereas you have a business that is employing people and providing services to a community that is useful. And is paying taxes into the community too. So it's helping to support the community. You have homes, businesses, and a church knocked down for an electric vehicle plant that the communist Chinese are running here in the United States.
Yeah, I can't get over the fact that the Supreme Court went the way they did. And I still don't understand why a place like Utah is, 75% of the land is owned by the feds.
70%.
What are they doing with the land? And why didn't they
They're not
send all
allowing-
the illegals there?
Well, I mean, if you've got public land like that, you can have recreational parks and things like that, sightseeing. You can turn around to someone and say, hey, listen, we know there's minerals underneath, so why don't you go and get them? Meanwhile, we can build a park around what you're doing anyway. You know, you can make it a multi-use thing. You can sell it back to the people. Let the local communities decide what they want. Instead of the state can turn around and say, all right, this city or this town, this is the land that encompasses you. You decide what you want to do with it. Bring it back to the people. But once they take away your ability to own property, you're on the way to communism.
I just can't get over that a state as Utah would allow the government to take over 70% of it, its landmass. And what do they need that for? What's going on with the government in places like this? Utah is a big territory.
Well, there's an excellent article online at the American Policy Center. The website is americanpolicy.org, written by Kathleen Marquette. And she talks about whether or not you are able to own property or are you property. So once you take the ability for you and I to own property, they now control where we go, what we do.
Well, they do. All they have to do is put up a sign saying government property, do not trespass.
Well, she quotes John Adams. John Adams, one of our founding fathers, stated, the moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the law of God and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. And that is not an exaggeration. Without the right to own property, we are slaves. Because now your ability to live anywhere you want to live is only as good as the lease they allow you to hold. So if they decide, no, and this happens under communist Chinese, and it's happened to others, if you have the larger house, and this happened in the Soviet Union, you have a larger house than anyone else, they're going to force you out. They're going to ostracize you. They're going to chase you out, and they'll take over that property. You don't own it. The people own it.
Well, I think that was the premise behind Agenda 21, to get everybody to live in these big cities, use mass transportation, and so the government can buy up the rural areas. You know, didn't work out though, but they came close.
No, well, you know, we have to go back to our original founding documents and adhere to what our founders intended. And not what they are trying to interpret under today's mores. Because our founders set up the Bill of Rights specifically to help protect us. And the moment they take away our free speech, then the Republic falls. But that's what they're trying to do. Prevent us from saying what we feel and want to say. And instead of saying,
take over if they get our Second Amendment out the way first.
Well, that is what they're doing. A good example are the red flag laws. If someone can turn around, drop a dime on you, and say to some judge or to some law enforcement official, I think they're crazy. I think they want to shoot themselves and shoot other people. Even though you may not have even taken your gun out, your gun may be still locked in the safe. You may have just had a dispute over your property line, or you may have just turned around to the person and said, I don't like your hair. Next thing you know, they dropped a dime on you and they said that you're nuts, you got a gun. And next thing you know, you got a warrant on knocking on your door. Your guns are confiscated. You're possibly even brought into a mental hospital. And you have to fight to get your rights back through red flag laws. And that's what they're trying to do to us. So we have to reinforce the Second Amendment to protect the First. And we were talking about the ability to peacefully assemble. And this is what they tried to take away from us during the COVID pandemic. oh no, you can't. You got to stay 6 feet apart. You can't have a service in public. You're in open air. You're 6 feet apart. You're following all the other rules, but you still find that the minister and other people are being arrested because they're assembling for a religious service. I mean, what we went through with COVID is taking their foot and ramming it through the door and crashing it open, because this is the road to tyranny.
Oh, they loved it. They love controlling people, and they love watching people submit so willingly. I thought they would have put up a bigger fight, the American people, but I guess their fear was greater than their faith.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like we may not have Trevor for some reason. I'm just trying to get a hold of someone that can turn around and say, well, where's Trevor? That he should be signing in. So I apologize, folks, just as I tried to send that.
Do you know if he's in the States or out of the country?
I honestly don't know. That
could be the problem.
Well, we only got a few minutes left. So anyway, folks, I do this show with Vicki Tompkins on Wednesday with Dan Perkins Media called Moms Across America. And one of the things we do is stressing the need for people to know their Constitution and what is in the Bill of Rights and what does it say and how it protects us. You know, the Third Amendment is supposed to prevent the government from forcing homeowners to allow soldiers to use their homes before the Revolutionary War. It prevented government from taking over our property and our homes. So the founding fathers already had a basis in here, and yet we allow eminent domain. The Fourth Amendment bars the government from unreasonable search and seizure of an individual or their private property. We've got the foundations to protect, and they're not being done. So, well, I'm just trying to all right, video, not phone. I guess he was expecting a phone call, and we haven't done that. Matter of fact, the folks that are looking for us over on Blog Talk Radio, at the end of January, that will end. Blog Talk Radio is going out of business. So you won't be able to see us there. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we've got 5 minutes left, and it's a little bit too late. We're going to have to reschedule him for his interview. And I apologize, folks, if you were looking for Trevor, but we had a great time with Alyona. What a wonderful lady. She's got a fantastic, an amazing history. She herself was put in the gulag for her beliefs and her fight for communism. So, yeah, between her and Trevor, what two warriors we have to help preserve liberty and freedom. Well, anyway, folks, we are down to our last few minutes here, and I guess that's about all I have. One other thing I just wanted to mention, with this election, we saw a little bit of a turn in how some of the Democrats are treating Republicans and their fellows across the aisle in Congress and the Senate. And Senator John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania, Democrat, has proven to be a lot more moderate and willing to reach across the aisle and support Donald Trump. He says, I'm not going to turn around and trample on everything he does. So we do have, I personally think he may be a little bit of a Looney Tunes, but he's actually making more of a sound, reasonable stance than we have seen with others, such as AOC and the Squad. So maybe there is hope that once Donald Trump takes back over, that we can find moderation and maybe bring this nation back to its core values, which I'm hoping that will happen.
What do you think about us regaining control of the Panama Canal, which Jimmy Carter gave away, I heard, for $1?
That's going to be interesting, because if we don't take control of it or find that we have access to it, China will then control it, and we cannot go from the Pacific to the Atlantic unless we go the long way around. And we built that canal. We built that canal. And unfortunately, Jimmy Carter did give it away, and we got to find some way to bring it back. But folks, that's all we got for today. We should be back here. I'm not sure about coming back. What do you think? Coming back next weekend?
I think too many people could be hungover. Maybe 2 days.
Well, I think we may skip next week. Give everyone a little bit of a rest. Yeah, and we'll see if we can line Trevor back up, get him back on here, and get a lot of other things done. See if we can get Mark Tapscott back, and Hannah Davis, and all our other buddies. But guys, I want to thank you for joining us, and want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a very blessed Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. I look forward to the inauguration on the 20th, and I hope all goes well and we don't have any of the problems we've been fearing with the drones and everything else. It's a nervous time, and I think a lot of us are very nervous, but very hopeful that this nation will start to move forward. So,
I believe we will.
With that, I hope so, and I do. With that, I want to say thank you, and God bless, and we will see you in the new year. Until then.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Mourn for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Lord, for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. That's why we together we can save America.